Left alone in Italy. The shocking truth behind my husband's prank and a new love at midnight. The sunlight poured over the quaint streets of Rome like liquid gold, illuminating the cobblestones with an almost surreal glow. But beneath that picturesque facade lay a twisted truth that would unravel a heart-wrenching tale of betrayal and revelation. Emily stood breathless, clutching her phone, heart racing in her chest. The last text from Michael read like a classic plot twist. "Don't wait for me, Em. You'll find out soon why." What could possibly be so drastic? A sinking dread settled in her stomach. The air was thick with the scent of fresh basil and simmering marinara, but all she could taste was bitterness. It was supposed to be their dream honeymoon, a chance to bask in the romance of Italy, but now? Now the world twisted into a blur of confusion. She glanced at the Trevi fountain, its waters dancing playfully, mocking her turmoil. Had Michael really thought it would be funny to leave her alone, just days after they tied the knot? As the hour hand crept toward midnight, the gelato shops began closing, and shadows deepened in the alleys. She pulled her jacket tighter, trying to ward off the chill that wrapped around her like a shroud. Then, a strange sound broke the silence, a whisper carried on the night wind. "Help me." It came from a nearby alley, brittle and scared. Was anyone else hearing that? A chill ran down her spine, thoughts racing. Was this all part of his devious game? A moment later, she glimpsed a figure disappearing around the corner. Fear and curiosity tangled in her mind, and before she could think twice, she found herself following. What was she doing? This wasn't like her, not at all. But the allure of the unknown, combined with the echoes of that haunting plea, pulled her deeper into the shadowy depths of the city. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Suddenly, the whisper rose again, an urgent cry that made her heart race even faster. "Help me!" Fear gripped her throat, but her feet moved forward, almost against her will. She rounded the corner and the scene regaled her senses. A dimly lit figure slumped against a wall, face obscured. What was happening? What had Michael gotten into? Was this the punchline of a sinister joke, or was it something far worse? A lump formed in her throat as she measured her next steps, heart pounding. What she found out next would change everything. Emily's breath hitched as she stepped closer to the figure, cautious yet compelled by an inexplicable tapestry of emotions. A flickering street lamp cast an erratic glow, revealing a man hunched over, his clothes tattered, and dirt smudged across his face. Instinct screamed at her to turn back, yet her heart beat loudly in her ears, urging her forward. "Hey, are you okay?" she called out, her voice shaky but determined. At her words, the figure lifted his head slightly. A pair of haunted eyes met hers, filled with desperation and fear. "Please. I need help," he gasped, his voice gravelly, thick with pain. She took in the sharp contours of his face, the stubble growing wildly. He looked like someone who had been in a fight, or worse, had been running away from something. "Who did this to you? What happened?" She pressed, her instincts kicking in. Was this another one of Michael's elaborate jokes? A prank akin to the kind that left people gasping in shock? But no, this felt too real, too terrifying. I was set up," he stammered, trembling violently. "They're coming for me, and they'll find me if you don't help." The urgency in his words sent chills coursing through her. What was happening? Should she trust him? Then, as if to punctuate his desperate plea, a low growl echoed through the alley, followed by the sound of footsteps approaching rapidly. Emily's heart dropped. Where was Michael? Had he orchestrated this chaos from afar? "Please, you have to trust me. They're not just after me, they'll come after you too if they find out you're helping me," the man insisted, his voice barely above a whisper. Emily's mind raced. Images of Michael's last text flashed before her. Was he somehow involved in this? Was this all part of some sick joke that spiraled out of control? Her pulse quickened, and panic began to creep in. "Why should I believe you?" she demanded, trying to maintain control. "Because," he replied, lowering his voice, "if you don't, you'll regret it. They'll destroy everything you love." In that moment, a dark figure emerged at the end of the alley, silhouetted by the streetlights. Something cold and metallic glinted in his hand. Emily's breath caught again. Adrenaline surged through her veins. She had to make a choice, and she had to make it fast. Stay and help this stranger, or flee and risk whatever threat Michael may have left her with. "Run!" she screamed, the urgency in her voice snapping her instincts back into focus. Taking a step back, she felt her heart hammering like a drum in her chest. The man stared at her, eyes wide with shock. "Wait! You can't leave me!" he shouted, but the shadowy figure was getting closer. She had no time for hesitation. With a quick glance back, she took off into the maze of winding streets. Each step echoed her racing thoughts. Michael was missing. She'd been abandoned. But was this stranger an even worse fate? The crunch of footsteps behind her urged her to run faster, pushing her deeper into the night. And then, the text from Michael flashed in her mind again. "You'll find out soon why." What had he meant? As she dashed around a corner, Emily stumbled upon a hidden courtyard bathed in moonlight, littered with antique furniture and shattered dreams. There, she could hide, or perhaps discover answers about Michael, the man who had just entered her life like a thunderstorm, and the truth lurking in the shadows. The flickering light from a half-open window drew her attention. Could it be a way out or the beginning of something far darker? She hesitated, poised at the cusp of revelation. What awaited her next would either save her or shatter her entire world. And in that moment, as the shadow of the unknown loomed behind her, she realized choice was a fragile thing, and the true horror was just beginning. The flickering light beckoned, a siren's call in her chaotic mind. Emily stood poised at the entrance of the courtyard, her footsteps faltering. The darkness felt alive, throbbing with anxiety as the nagging dread of what lay behind her clawed at her thoughts. She took a deep breath, forcing her legs to move. As she stepped closer to the window, the air shimmered with an unsettling stillness. Shadows danced across her surroundings, twisting her perception as if the night itself were alive. She reached the window, glancing inside to find an empty room, the furniture cloaked in a thick layer of dust. A sudden crash echoed from the alley where she had just emerged. Adrenaline surged through her as she ducked instinctively, pressing herself against the cool stone wall of the courtyard. The man's plea rang in her ears, mixing with the rising tide of panic. They were after him. They were after her. The thought sent a chill racing down her spine. Desperate for answers, Emily edged back to the window, trying to peep inside without making a sound. The room appeared deserted, but something shifted in the shadows. She squinted, trying to discern what it was when she heard it, a whisper carried on the stillness. Help! Every instinct screamed for her to bolt, but curiosity yanked her closer. Who was in there? Was it the same man? Had he followed her? Suddenly, a figure shifted in the darkness inside the room as the guttural growl from the alley erupted again. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She mustered her courage and grabbed hold of the window frame, the chill of the metal biting into her palms. "What do I do?" she muttered under her breath. A shuffling sound added urgency to her plight. The window creaked ominously as she pushed it open, and her heart raced louder, competing with the chaos around her. She needed to enter, to find out if there was any fortification against the impending threat. The darkness welcomed her like an old friend, the kind you realize is secretly toxic. With a swift motion, she climbed inside, crouching low as she surveyed the room. Every creak of the wooden floor sent her heart into a frantic waltz. The palpable silence felt like a trap, ready to spring at any moment. "Who's there?" a voice called out, low and cautious. Emily froze, breath caught in her throat. It wasn't he, the man from the alley. This voice was smoother, commanding, but laced with fear. "Stay back. I mean no harm," she shouted, her voice shaking with uncertainty, yet echoing with defiance. The figure stepped into the dim light, not the man she had seen, yet undeniably striking. Tall, with dark hair tousled as if he had just gotten out of bed. Panic pulled at his expression. "You're not safe here." "They're coming," he said urgently, eyes darting toward the door. "Then we need to move," she urged, adrenaline sharpening her focus. "That man, he was set up, and someone is after him. We can't just hide here." His jaw tightened, the hour growing tense between them. "You don't understand. You don't know what you're getting into." "Then help me understand." She shot back, her voice stronger than she felt. "I can't just stand by and do nothing." And as if summoned by their heated exchange, a loud bang reverberated from the alley door, heralding the arrival of danger. The dark figure emerged again, more determined, a terrifying gaze locked on the window. Emily realized, in that moment, that choices were about to slip right through her fingers. "Go," the man urged, shoving Emily toward a door at the back of the room. "No." But she hesitated, torn between the man's desperate warnings and her need for answers. Who was he? What had Michael dragged her into? As the darkness closed in, Emily realized that everything she knew might just unravel into chaos. What lay beyond the door? Escape or something worse? As she turned the handle, the weight of uncertainty settled hard on her shoulders. The moment was here. They had no time left. In the shadows, decisions would define them, and the true nightmare was lurking just ahead. Emily's heart raced as she turned the door handle, half expecting something sinister to rush in. The door swung open with a creak that echoed through the eerie silence, its motion revealing another darkened hallway. The air was thick with dust, stale and uninviting, yet the man behind her pushed her forward, urgency fueling his every movement. "Keep moving," he urged, urgency cracking his calm facade. His hand on her back felt like an anchor, pulling her away from the danger that lurked just outside the room. Emily had no choice but to comply. She stepped into the corridor, her feet quiet against the wooden floorboards. Adrenaline surged through her, mingling with curiosity. This place, dark and forgotten, held secrets. "Who are you?" she asked, glancing over her shoulder. "Levi," he replied breathlessly. "And you need to trust me." "Trust?" She lifted an incredulous brow, shaking her head. "How can I trust you when I don't even know what the hell is happening?" "Because I'm trying to keep you alive." His eyes flashed with raw desperation, and in that instant, doubt whispered in Emily's mind. Could he really be her ally? The distant sound of footsteps in the alley made her stomach drop. She pressed onward, following Levi down the hallway, her pulse pounding in tempo with each step. The dim light from wall sconces illuminated their path, casting long shadows that seemed to claw at their heels. "What's coming?" she pressed, dread pooling in her gut. "People who don't play by the rules," Levi said tersely. "They've been tracking that man from the alley and will do anything to find him. If they connect him to you," his voice trailed off, as if the very mention of the consequences sent chills down his spine. Emily's breath hitched at the thought. She was in way over her head. "But I didn't do anything. I just wanted to help." "Helping can get you killed," he snapped, frustration spilling over. His eyes softened for a heated moment. "But I trust you. Just stay close." Without warning, a loud crash erupted behind them, another door slamming open. The echo vibrated through her bones, and she felt Levi tense beside her. "Run!" he shouted, urgency slicing through. They sprinted down the corridor, each footfall drawing them deeper into the ominous heart of the building. Emily's thoughts raced. Why had she gotten involved? What had she gotten Michael into? Then, in the midst of their flight, the air changed. A pungent smell of smoke wrapped around them, sending panic surging through her veins. "Fire?" she gasped. Levi nodded, urgency contorting his features. Coming to a junction, they skidded to a stop. To the left, a narrow staircase led upward, dark and foreboding. To the right, a door stood ajar, light spilling out like an invitation. Which way? Emily breathed, her mind whirling. The chaos was alive around them, each second looming heavier than the last. "Up! We need to get to the roof," Levi shouted, not waiting for her response. He took her hand, pulling her toward the staircase. Every step became a race against time, their hurried breaths mingling as they climbed. The narrow passage felt constricting. Every shadow felt like an adversary, and the thud of footsteps behind them quickened her pulse. Reaching the top, they burst into the night sky. The view of the sprawling city below took her breath away, but there was no time to savor it. The rooftop was daunting, exposed. "They want to stop," Levi warned, the weight of his words heavy. The air crackled with tension as they moved closer to the edge, searching for a way to escape the nightmare that chased them. Just as hope flickered, a piercing scream echoed up from below. It froze them both in place. Emily's heart sank. Who had been captured? They had precious seconds before chaos descended. In that moment, she realized that they were no longer just running for their lives. They were entwined in something much larger. They had to choose, would they fight or hide, but a new sound cut through the night, a roar of engines, headlights spilling onto the roof. Emily turned, eyes wide. In that split second, the fate of their lives hung in the balance. "Levi!" she screamed, fear washing over her. What do we do now? What awaited them, hope or destruction? The headlights danced across the rooftop, illuminating a stark contrast against the night sky. Emily's instincts screamed at her to retreat, but there was nowhere to go. She felt a jolt of panic. The deep growl of the engines promised danger. "Levi, we can't just stand here," she shouted, her voice raspy with adrenaline. The weight of the world pressed down on her as she sensed Levi's hesitance, a momentary flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "We need to hide now," he snapped, moving swiftly toward an old, rusty ventilation shaft near the edge of the building. The faint smell of oil mingled with the acrid smoke, making her stomach churn. He glanced back, urgency etching deeper lines into his face. "In there. It may be cramped, but it's better than nothing." Emily hesitated, fear wrapping around her throat. "What if they see us?" Levi's expression hardened. "Then we're dead." Without waiting for her to gather her thoughts, he grabbed her wrist and pulled her inside. The metal was cold and sticky, the space tighter than she expected. They crouched, barely breathing. The sounds of the engines grew closer, a group of vehicles rattling to a stop just below them. Voices erupted into the air, muffled but furious. "Find her," a deep voice barked, cutting through the night like a blade. "She's the key. If we lose her, we lose everything." Panic squeezed at Emily's chest. "What key? What did they want with her?" She dared a glance at Levi, his eyes wide with understanding, reflecting the same questions raging in her mind. The shadows of feet danced around the edge of the roof, their figures striding with an air of ferocity. "Move out," someone shouted. "We've got to search every inch. The last thing we need is for them to slip away." Emily's mind raced. She clung to Levi, counting each frantic heartbeat as the footsteps echoed above them. She had dragged herself into this mess under the false guise of wanting to help Michael, and now she was on the verge of losing everything: her life, her normalcy, maybe even Michael himself. As the search intensified, the air grew thick with tension. Each shout sent chills down her spine until she could almost feel the cold breath of danger tingling down her neck. "We can't stay here," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "What if they look here?" "They want tea," Levi murmured, his voice a whisper of steel. "They're focused below. We'll wait until they move. Trust me." But before he could finish speaking, a loud bang interrupted their thoughts. A metal door flew open, and the roof flooded with even more light. The silhouettes rushed out into the night, searching, probing for any signs of life. A shiver ran through Emily. She was trapped within a nightmare, adrenaline coursing through her veins as she held her breath. Just when she thought hope might slip away completely, she caught a glimpse of the man who had led her into this chaos, the man who claimed to be her ally. "Levi?" she gasped, but he was staring down below, eyes narrowing as if he were calculating something. Then he turned back to her, fierce determination igniting in his gaze. "We need to create a distraction," he said, voice low. "Can you climb?" Her heart raced. "Climb where?" "The ledge." He gestured to the edge of the roof. "If we can make them think we've gone over, we might have a chance to slip away." "Are you insane?" she hissed, fear clashing with instinct. That's a death drop. I'll be right behind you. Just trust me. His words hung in the air, swelling with urgency. A moment later, an explosion of noise erupted from below. A cloud of chaos rattled above them, and for one precious moment, they both felt the ground tremor beneath. The next decision loomed large in Emily's mind: leap into the unknown or stay hidden and risk being found. And then, no more time to think. Go, Levi urged, eyes locked onto hers as the reality of their situation shattered around them. What were they willing to sacrifice to escape alive? Would they end up in a free fall or find freedom against the odds? Emily's breath caught in her throat as she reeled at the choice before her. Adrenaline twisted her insides like a coiled spring. The ledge loomed like a precipice of uncertainty, threatening to plunge her into a deadly abyss. But Levi's eyes were fierce, and his unwavering belief sparked something in her. With an involuntary nod, she stepped forward, every muscle in her body tensed as she approached the edge. She could feel the grit of the rooftop beneath her shoes, the way the cold wind whipped at her clothes, bringing clarity to her chaotic thoughts. For a fleeting moment, the world around her felt distant. On the count of 3, Levi whispered, his voice steady despite the chaos erupting around them. 1, 2, Levi. Emily's voice broke, panic clawing at her resolve. 3. With a surge of instinct, she lunged forward, the wind rushing past as she grasped instinctively for any ledge or handhold. The drop was dizzying, but she managed to cling to a narrow overhang that protruded from the building's side. Her heart thundered in her chest, echoing a mix of fear and exhilaration. Below, she could see shadows flitting beneath the streetlights, searching, their frantic movements amplifying her urgency. Stay low, Emily. Levi called after her, scrambling to follow. His fingers grazed her arm as he steadied himself beside her. They hung there, suspended between survival and disaster. What now? She hissed, daring to glance down. A myriad of daunting possibilities rose within her like a tidal wave, threatening to drown her. Just hang tight. Levi's words were firm. We need to wait for them to shift position. Below, the voices grew more desperate. Check the corners, rang out, underscored by nervy footsteps and the distant rumble of engines revving. As the commotion swept closer, Emily pressed against the wall. For a beat, she closed her eyes, allowing fear to wash over her. She could feel Levi's presence beside her, steadying, anchoring. I'm not losing you, Emily, he said, a hint of desperation creeping into his tone. Not now. Is it worth it? She murmured, somewhere between hope and despair. All of this just to survive? We'll figure it out. Together, he replied, a quiet resolve wrapping around them like a protective barrier. Then, as if fate conspired against them, a loud crash shattered the night. An explosion of glass echoed like a roll of thunder in the dark. Emily squeezed her eyes shut tighter, heart pounding. They had to move. The sudden burst of light from a flashbang illuminated the street below, causing shadows to dart and twist, silhouetted figures ducking and rising in confusion. Levi looked at Emily, and in that moment, a silent agreement passed between them. Now, he urged. They dropped down from the ledge, landing unsteadily on the adjacent rooftop, the smell of smoke burning in their noses. Levi steadied her, and they crouched low, adrenaline-fueled instincts kicking in as they moved to the edge of that building. They could hear their pursuers cursing and shouting in the chaos below. We need to keep moving, Levi whispered urgently, glancing around, searching for any sign of an escape route. Emily nodded, her heart racing, but as they turned to make their way, a shadow darted out from behind an air conditioning unit, a figure heaving a heavy bag and rushing toward them. Levi, look out! She shouted, warning him just before the figure lunged in their direction, eyes wild and frantic, with a mix of fear and confusing trust. Emily tensed, ready for anything. What had she just stepped into? A fight, a partnership, or a deadly game of cat and mouse? The figure skidded to a halt, their face illuminated just enough for her to see shock etched into their features. Emily. Levi. A voice echoed, while the chaos around them ebbed momentarily. Was it an ally or another foe bent on capturing her? Who are you? Emily breathed, dread pooling anew in her gut, searching the shadowed face for a hint of familiarity. Just as the tension peaked, a shudder coursed through the building beneath their feet, the sounds of engines roaring to life once more, and the ground trembled again. Time to go, Levi insisted, pulling her close. But as they began to run, a chilling laugh rang out through the night, freezing both of them in their tracks. You think you can escape that easily? The voice taunted, sending shivers racing down Emily's spine, and within that moment of dread, the real nightmare seemed to begin. Emily's heart raced as she and Levi exchanged wide-eyed glances, fear twisting their features in a dance of panic. The voice, it was low and mocking. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but the icy grip of fear rooted her in place. Who are you? Levi demanded, his voice steady despite the rising tension. He stood slightly in front of Emily, an unyielding barrier against whatever danger lay ahead. The figure stepped into the spilling light, revealing a face that twisted Emily's stomach into a knot. It was Derek, a former ally turned ghost, a memory tainted with betrayal. Surprised to see me? He sneered, eyes glinting with malice. What do you want? Emily's voice came out barely above a whisper, the weight of his presence pressing down on her. Derek chuckled darkly. Oh, you know. Same old game. Just thought I'd drop in. Thought you could escape my grasp forever? You're more naive than I remembered. Levi tensed beside her, ready to act. Back off, Derek. You're outnumbered. Am I? Derek's laugh rang out against the night, echoing ominously. You two think you're free? It's just begun. I have plans bigger than you could imagine. An electric tension filled the air, a charged moment before the storm. Emily felt a shudder rip through her. What are you talking about? Before Derek could respond, a sharp sound shattered the air. A gunshot rang out, ricocheting off the concrete with a sickening crack. Emily's heart dropped as pieces of brick exploded around them. She ducked instinctively, pulling Levi down as they narrowly avoided a spray of splintered debris. Run! Levi shouted, urgency laced in every syllable. They darted away from the edge and down a series of dimly lit rooftops. With every leap, adrenaline coursed through her veins, but dread clung to her like shadow, knowing Derek would follow. They stumbled into a narrow alley where the deafening echoes of chaos faded momentarily. Breathe, she urged herself, fighting against the rising panic. She felt the sharp edge of a broken bottle underfoot, every sound amplified as they took refuge beneath a fire escape. What was that? Levi panted, his breath heavy. He glanced at her, eyes wide with concern. What does he mean about plans? Emily shook her head, the memories clawing at the back of her mind. I thought he was gone. I thought we were safe. The words faltered on her lips as she tried to push past layers of betrayal and guilt. Suddenly, sirens blared in the distance, growing louder, drawing closer. But before they could regroup, the clatter of footsteps echoing from both ends of the alley sent their hearts racing. They were cornered. Time to act quickly. Climb, Levi urged, pointing to the fire escape above. Without hesitation, they scrambled up the metal rungs, hearts pounding with urgency. We have to see where this leads. As they reached the last rung, Emily could feel Levi's steadying hand on her back, their bond sparking a flicker of hope in the midst of chaos. They clambered onto the rooftop, scanning the horizon. The city sprawled before them, a maze of lights and shadows. But the moment of relief shattered as Derek's figure emerged below, silhouetted against the flickering lights of the streets. You can't hide forever. I'll find you. His voice echoed ominously, feeding the growing monster of dread in Emily's chest. What do we do now? She whispered, desperation creeping into her tone. Levi's eyes bore into hers fear, determination, but also a glimmer of something else. We need to find a way to stop him. But just as they turned to chart their escape, a blinding light flashed, a searchlight sweeping the rooftops. They froze, hearts racing, as they realized it wasn't just Derek hunting them. Move, Levi shouted, urgency pushing them into action. Would this end in another confrontation, or would they find a way out once and for all? As they darted into the shadows, Emily realized one brutal truth. Darkness wasn't just closing in on them from outside. It was brewing from within, and the choice between flight and fight was about to have dire consequences, and within the chaos, the question lingered. Who could they really trust? Emily and Levi crouched behind the concrete edge, hearts pounding in sync with the blaring sirens and flashing lights sweeping through the night. The searchlight moved like a predatory gaze, scanning for movement, and every part of her wanted to shrink away, to disappear into nothingness. "Where do we go?" she whispered, panic bubbling in her throat. "Follow me," Levi urged, his voice firm despite the chaos thrumming around them. He took a breath, then sprung to action, leading her down the slanted rooftop toward the adjoining building. As they jumped across the narrow gap, Emily felt a rush of uncertainty, her body propelled by instinct while her mind spun with the weight of Derek's words. "Plans? What plans?" The doubt gnawed at her, clawing at her resolve. She barely registered landing on the next rooftop before Levi pulled her into a crouch behind an air conditioning unit. They listened as footsteps echoed beneath them, heavy and deliberate, followed by a distant shout. Levi peered over the edge, weighing their options. "It's the cops. They must be," responded to the gunfire, he murmured, keeping his voice low. Then Derek, she trailed off, the realization wrapping cold fingers around her spine. What if he used this chaos as a cover? What if they trapped themselves even further? The searchlight swept past again, nearly blinding them. They clung to the shadows, the faint acrid smell of smoke mingling with the sweat on Emily's brow. "We have to keep moving," Levi insisted. "If he finds us, he won't." Emily interrupted, her voice sharper than intended, a harbinger of the growing desperation and determination brewing within her. "We'll find a way out. We always do." They darted again, zigzagging between obstacles, moving closer to the edge of the roof. The city beckoned below, sprawling and chaotic, but what lay ahead was just as uncertain as the past that chased them relentlessly. As they neared a ledge leading down to another alley, Emily halted. "Levi, wait, do you hear that?" The sound was subtle, almost lost in the cacophony of faint humming, rhythmic and eerie. Strange enough to raise alarm bells in her mind. "It's nothing," Levi whispered, but faltered as the noise intensified, morphing into something almost like laughter laced with malice. They exchanged glances, both frozen in place. Suddenly, a voice rose up, sharp and taunting. Well, look who's playing hide and seek. Did you really think I'd let you just slip away?" Derek's figure emerged from the shadows, flanked by an ominous silhouette behind him. Emily's stomach dropped. "A second figure? You really should run faster," Derek continued, the grin on his face chilling her blood. "Because now, your little game comes with stakes." A flash of movement caught her eye, and her instinct kicked in. "Levi, go!" she yelled, shoving him away from the ledge just as shots rang out, splintering the bricks where they stood moments before. They scrambled down, adrenaline surging, hearts pounding like war drums in their chests. The laughter echoed fiercely behind them, taunting them as they launched themselves into the next alley. Derek's voice, cold and mocking, was relentless. "You can't escape this time. You owe me." Breathless, they reached a dead end, a wall looming above them, trapping them in place. Levi turned, panic flickering in his eyes. "What do we do?" Desperation surged within Emily, pushing aside her fear. There has to be a way to fight back. But in that moment of sheer terror and uncertainty, her mind raced through blurred memories of betrayals, the remnants of trust and their very survival. The charge in the air crackled, the danger closing in like a storm. Just when it seemed they had no way out, a glimmer caught her eye. A rusted fire escape, perhaps the very thing they needed to climb to safety if they could reach it in time. "Over there." Emily pointed, her voice sharp as steel. But Derek's laughter rolled closer, and with every step, the weight of his darkness loomed over them. Would they make it in time? Or would this be the night their fight ended in betrayal? With every ounce of strength, they raced toward the ladder, knowing Derek had never been far behind. The fire escape, rusted and precarious, seemed miles away as Emily and Levi sprinted toward it. The sound of footsteps echoed off the alley walls. Derek was gaining on them. Emily's heart hammered harder in her chest, each beat a countdown to their fate. "Keep moving," Levi urged, his voice strained with urgency. The metal steps creaked ominously as Emily clambered up. She felt a sense of dread clinging to her like a fog. Leaving the ground felt both liberating and terrifying. Levi scrambled behind her, his hands grabbing at the railing to hoist himself up. The laughter below intensified, ricocheting between the buildings, a dark melody that sent chills down her spine. Derek was relentless. It was as if he thrived on their fear, feeding off the chaos he created. "Almost there," she shouted. They were only a few rungs away from the rooftop above, the promise of escape tantalizingly close. As they reached the roof, Emily flung herself over the edge, landing hard on the asphalt. She quickly scrambled to her feet, adrenaline sharpening her senses. Levi followed, but just as he stepped onto the roof, a shout pierced the night. "There they are." It was a voice she recognized, a voice she wished she didn't hear, the familiar timbre of Derek. Panic surged through her as she turned. The rooftop was barren, an expanse of cold black tar under her feet. There were no hiding spots, no cover. "We need to go," she urged, dragging Levi toward the far side. "I'm not leaving you," he shot back, eyes wild with fear. "Derek will catch up." They could hear the echoing footsteps, the searchlight's beam cut through the night, desperate to find them. Then a booming laugh erupted from below. "You thought you could escape the game? You never should come back to this city." Derek's voice dripped with malice. "You've made this too easy." Emily felt the ground under her slip away, overwhelmed by his menace. She glanced around frantically, hoping for an exit. But all she saw was the chaotic sprawl of the city lights reflecting their hopelessness. Suddenly, the eerie hum returned, a thrum that seemed to pulse through the air. It was louder now, higher-pitched, vibrating with a foreboding energy. Emily and Levi exchanged a worried look. "What is that?" Levi whispered, his grip tightening on her arm. "I don't know," she muttered, but the growing dread settled in her bones. Just then, an arc of light flickered against the skyline. "Something, an explosion?" "No," a fireball erupted in the distance. The shockwave rattled the rooftop, making them stumble. Emily turned wide-eyed toward Levi. "What was that?" "Whatever that was, it could be our chance," he shouted, urgency flooding his voice. But before they could process the unfolding chaos, the ground shook again. Derek's laughter turned into a shout of frustration. "You want to escape? I'll find you." With each passing second, dread poured over them like a thick fog. The humming grew louder, as though answering Derek's taunts, reverberating intensely with the unease of the moment. A harsh wind picked up, swirling debris around them like a haunting reminder of their peril. "Emily, we have to go," Levi yelled, pushing her forward just as a figure began to rise from the shadows, a looming shape that shifted and glimmered ominously. Heart racing, she turned, facing the strange form that had emerged from the chaos, caught between escape and the familiar threat. Fear twisted in her stomach. "Emily, look out!" Levi shouted, and she felt a vice grip her heart. This was not just a nightmare looming, it could be their end. The ground trembled violently again, and the world flipped upside down as the rooftop began to buckle beneath their feet. What lay ahead was perilous, a cliff of decisions that could either lead them to safety or into Derek's twisted game. The foreboding figure lingered in her vision, a question echoing in her mind. Could they fight against it all, or would they fall into darkness? The night was far from over, and shadows danced menacingly as they raced toward an uncertain future. Emily gasped as the ground shifted beneath her feet, sending tremors through her body. She caught a glimpse of Derek's smug face, his confidence flaring in the chaos. This was her reckoning, and she felt the fire of determination burn brighter within her. Together, she shouted, rallying her spirit. The vibration beneath her felt like the heartbeat of the city, a pulse that echoed her own fear. She could not let Derek's taunts control her any longer. She turned to Levi, whose fierce gaze mirrored her resolve. They had come this far. Without thinking, they bolted toward the edge of the rooftop, where a treacherous drop awaited. "Jump!" Levi yelled, and Emily didn't hesitate. As they leaped, the world around them blurred into a dizzying backdrop of lights and shadows. They landed hard on the adjacent roof, rolling to absorb the impact. Pain shot through her shoulder, but adrenaline drowned it out. They scrambled to their feet, hearts pounding in rhythm. The irritating laughter of Derek echoed behind them like the tick of a clock, counting down their time. "We can't keep running like this," Emily screamed as they rounded a corner, desperation fueling her words. "We need a plan." Levi nodded, scanning their surroundings. "There." He pointed towards a narrow fire escape leading down into a more secluded alley. "If we can reach the ground, we can lose him in the streets. It's our only shot." But as they sprinted toward it, a group of Derek's men emerged from the shadows, blocking their path. The shadows seemed to close in, and panic clawed at her throat. Levi grabbed her wrist, and for a fleeting second, their eyes locked, two souls in a whirlwind of chaos, teetering at the edge, but they wouldn't back down. "Listen to me," Levi said urgently, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Do exactly what I say." He glanced around before pulling her toward a stack of crates nearby. "Get ready to climb," he instructed as he began to scale the boxes. Emily followed instinctively, her heart racing. Just as they got to the top, Derek's shout pierced the air. "Get them!" Racing up the remaining crates, they clambered over the edge of an adjacent roof. The world seemed to slow as they landed, but Emily's focus remained sharp. They had to choose between fear and bravery, and today, they were warriors. "I can hear them," she whispered, crouching low as they listened to the chaos erupting below. The sirens were louder now, merging with the distant echoes of chaos. They had to stay focused. Just then, a loud explosion lit up the night, sending shockwaves through the streets. "No!" Levi shouted, and they bolted again, racing across the rooftops, glancing down to see flickering lights of chaos below, police, rivals, all converging. "Levi!" Emily cried out suddenly, spotting something in the distance, the old warehouse. He followed her gaze, and as they pressed forward, memories flooded her mind. Michael, betrayal, unresolved feelings. She had to confront all of it. "There. The roof leads down into the warehouse." Levi pointed towards a slanted roof leading into a higher elevation. They dashed toward it, fueled not by hope, but by something tangible, the fight to seize their lives back. As they slid down into the warehouse, they tumbled into darkness, the cold concrete beneath them a stark contrast to the chaos they left behind. They scrambled up, panting, adrenaline still coursing through their blood. "This way," Levi gestured, and together they stumbled into the depths of the warehouse, shadows swallowing them within. It felt safe, but they both knew they weren't free yet, and then a sharp noise. Emily pressed her back against the wall, listening as footsteps echoed ominously. Levi's hand clasped over her mouth, breath slow and steady. They huddled together, both aware that Derek was still hot on their heels. As if on cue, Derek's voice sliced through the warehouse, low and malicious. "You think you can hide? I know this place like the back of my hand." Panic clenched Emily's chest, but amidst the fear, a fire ignited in her. "No more running," she whispered fiercely, her eyes flashing with the urgency of confronting what had been lurking in the shadows of her heart. Levi nodded, and they moved cautiously toward the rear of the building, hearts pounding like drums. This would end tonight. As they peered through a small window, they caught sight of Derek and his men searching, scanning, grinning, feeling power in their hands. But Emily felt something else crackling in the air, new possibilities, the urge to reclaim her story. With resolve igniting within, she grabbed Levi's hand. "Let us make it count," she breathed, and in one swift, synchronized motion, they stepped forward. "Here!" Levi shouted, luring Derek's attention. The moment hung like the flutter of a leaf held captive by wind, and when Derek turned with that gleeful smirk, Emily saw the fearlessness that had ignited in Levi's eyes. They threw caution to the wind, launching their bodies forward into the fight. It was time to reclaim their lives. With the sound of chaos behind them and the sight of freedom ahead, they launched into their electric moment, an explosion of power and betrayal. This was their fight, their truth, and no longer would betrayal define them. They threw everything they had into the chaos, confronting Derek once and for all, determined to regain their lives, their hope, and in the heart of the storm, Emily realized love in its purest form was a battlefield. And it was worth every scar she'd earned along the way, but beyond this moment, they would face the aftershocks of their choices. The sun would rise over Rome, and they would have to reclaim more than just their lives. It was time to find who they truly were, what they valued most, together. This was their path. And as the echoes of conflict faded, they tasted the tang of uncertainty, but also the spark of something greater, the hope of a new dawn, a fresh start, holding hands tightly as they faced the unknown horizon ahead. Now, as the final chapter of Emily and Levi unfolds, they knew one thing for sure: they were no longer defined by others, but by the choices they made, together. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support and not miss the next exclusive stories that unfold. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and make sure others can join in on the adventure. Don't wait even one more second to share this video. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Only true fans understand the importance of pushing this channel to its heights.